right, many thanks, Ibrahim and Hamidu, for that background report. And to begin, on the student loan scheme, let me welcome here in the studio Akitunde Sawyer, who is the Managing Director, Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NELFund. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and good morning to Nigerians.
You're welcome. I would also like to introduce our guest joining us via Zoom. Professor Umar Pate is the Vice Chancellor, Federal University, Kashere, Gombe. He's also the President, Society for Broadcasters of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
All right, let's begin from here in the studio. And I'd like to, start with clarity. How exactly does NELFund work, and who is qualified to benefit?
Okay, so maybe I should start with the second half of your question, who's qualified to benefit? NELFund is set up under law, so there was an act of Parliament, an act of the National Assembly that effectively says, first of all, NELFund, in order to qualify to apply for this loan, you have to be a Nigerian. Apart from that, you have to be either in a tertiary institution, so already be a part of a tertiary institution as a student. That tertiary institution must be owned by the government of Nigeria or the subnational governments of Nigeria. So effectively, it's a government institutional scheme for Nigerians in Nigeria. So we don't sponsor people to go abroad, only locally. So that's the first qualification criteria.
Government universities, private universities?
Okay, so what I said was that it's government-owned, federal or state government-owned universities. No private institutions. Also, let's be careful with the word universities, because I said tertiary institutions.
Okay.
So it's universities, polytechnics, colleges of education. Those three categories qualify, as long as they're government-owned, whether it's state government or federal government.
Okay. Can you tell us what prompted, the reforms, to the original Student Loan Act of 2023? Were there issues?
So, there were issues, but they were pre-launch issues that were identified. So it's not that the scheme was running already. It's just that the president, when he looked at the initial scheme, which he signed into law on the 12th of June 2023, having been passed in the National Assembly prior to that, decided that there were a number of things that he felt would discriminate against Nigerians. One was the fact that if a family had a household income in excess of 500,000 naira, they wouldn't qualify. The second was the fact that if a student or a loanee wanted to apply for the loan, they would need some sort of guarantor. And the president wasn't comfortable with that because it introduced a gateway, effectively, where there was an opportunity to prevent people for graft and all that sort of thing. The third thing was that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, wanted the students not just to have the opportunity to access the education, he wanted them to be able to access additional funds, stipends, pocket money, upkeep, call it what you like, but additional funds that go directly to them so that they don't go to class hungry.
Now, many students are excited but skeptical. What's in place to show that this is going to be sustainable?
Okay, so the excitement is very welcome, and I'm not surprised that students are excited, because for far too long in this country, especially there have been so many, and of course, once the party in question gets into power, some of those things are forgotten. And especially as it relates to this particular segment of society, which in many ways finds it difficult to find a voice, even though they're the largest number. So that's where this skepticism could come from. What has happened now is that we believe that having rolled this out, having got a significant number of people who have applied successfully, that, you know, that skepticism will be pushed back, because if your neighbor has applied for the loan, it's the greatest, you know, as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. The greatest way to dispel doubt is to show that it's possible and to show that people are getting it. This scheme, you can apply for it online, www.nelf.gov.ng. You don't need to know anybody. You just have to have a device, an internet connection, your JAM, your NIN, your matric number or admission number, name, accurate date of birth. And effectively, if your school has updated your data into their system, into our system, I beg your pardon, there's a match and you can get the loan. Many people have gotten this loan without speaking to anybody, without paying anybody anything.
Does everybody that applies qualified gets the loan?
No, otherwise, if everybody that applies qualified to get the loan, then there would be no point in having an application system. Yeah. Essentially, we have a system that goes through a number of steps. The initial qualifying criteria, I think, are already described. But clearly, one of the things that we do is to ensure that the credentials that are uploaded, so there's a requirement for the candidates to upload some data, some evidence, should I say, ID cards, admission letters in some cases. That's a critical part of it. The other part of it is to ensure that actually they attend the institution. So let me clarify on that. Remember, these loans are applied for in the privacy of people's homes, of people's bedrooms. We don't meet the candidates. We never meet the candidates. Therefore, we have to go through a process that ensures that they are verified, they're confirmed that by the institution that they're going to, they're confirmed by NIN, which we API, we have a digital handshake with, they're confirmed by JAM, where we have a digital handshake. Effectively, when they put all that information in, we can uniquely identify an individual. If any of that information is incorrect, if it's false, if it's wrong, then of course they are automatically disqualified.
I'm sure, you know, there are models like this in the US, in the UK, and other climes across the world. So what is the model that this Student Loan Act is fashioned after? And what is the application process like? You said you can do it from your room, from everywhere, but how tedious is it, not, you know, knowing that our network problem at times can just make things not easy anymore?
So I think you've asked two very useful questions there. So first of all, what's it modeled after? Well, we have I think this is probably most similar to the system or the model they have in the UK. But having said that, this is different in a number of ways. First of all, it's interest-free. So at no stage do the current applicants have to consider paying interest. I say that because the law allows us to apply interest. But we have decided that we are not going to do that because Nigerian students need to be encouraged and need to have the benefit of actually taking a loan to pay for something that can never be taken away from them. And to encourage them is to say, well, we're not a commercial entity. We're not trying to make a profit. So in essence, you know, that differentiates this from any other model that you might find anywhere else. The other thing that I should say to you is that students, loanees, those who have taken the loan, are not obliged to return any funds to the NEL fund until they have a job. And they are not required to even start doing that until 2 years after NYSC. So effectively, there's a long moratorium that allows them to look for work, to do anything that's possible, to even perhaps, you know, skills or acquisition to enhance themselves. And it is only when they get a job, anytime, 2 years after NYSC, that they're required to pay back. And even then, it's the employer that goes to check the NIN to see whether the person they're about to employ has a loan or not. And the employer deducts 10% from their salary. And by law, the employer is the one that's obliged to pay the NEL fund back, unless the loanee is self-employed, in which case they're paying themselves, to work and they're making a profit. But it's still 2 years after NYSC. Having said that, if people want to pay back immediately, because they don't pay back immediately because they've suddenly money, they don't have to differentiate. The president wants everybody access. Happening.
All right, let's give you a brief, MD. We'll get back to you because there are still a lot of things to clarify. But let's bring Professor Party into this conversation. And I'd like to ask, Prof, from where you stand as a Vice Chancellor, what's your assessment of the students' loan scheme, maybe from your students? And as a broadcaster, as a journalist, how do you see it, the workability of it?
Thank you very much and good morning. I think the NEL fund is one of the most significant policies and programs that we have had in our universities in recent times. I benefited from the state scholarship as a student in the 80s to get my first degree, and later through the instrumentality of the university fellowship, I was able also to get my postgraduate degrees, master's and PhD. But if not for TED Fund, that has been doing quite a lot in terms of providing fellowship for our lecturers in the universities to get higher degrees, not much could be said to have been done or from states or even from the federal side. But with the coming of NEL Fund, students can now benefit significantly. I am a Vice Chancellor. I've been receiving mails from TED Fund, and not only mails, I've been receiving monies into my bursary unit for students, and we have been disbursing these resources to our students. They are very, very happy, and these resources have been quite helpful. I can tell you that the flow of the funds so far has also been quite stable. Almost all the students that applied in my university, in thousands, have got the NEL Fund money. And as I'm talking to you right now, the last tranche we received from NEL Fund is being disbursed to our students. And like the Oga said, it is quite simple. I don't know how the students apply, but whenever they apply, I get a list from NEL Fund. And sometimes students also complain to me, oh, I've applied, I've not received, I've done this, I've not done that. At the beginning, students were a bit skeptical. And I remember on some occasions organizing our students to appeal to them to apply to the NEL Fund. I remember there was also a time we were in Abuja for a meeting, and immediately I returned to school. I called the Students' Union body to ensure that almost all the students have applied. Like the students in my department, I still teach my courses. My students are just resuming. The students in mass communication, particularly at the 400 level, almost all of them have received the NEL Fund money. Their names appeared in the last tranche. I wish I could share some of the text messages some of them sent to me, expressing appreciation, gratitude, as if it was the school that did it. But it wasn't the school. The school only is just like a facilitator. The real funders are in Abuja. They send us the money, and once we receive the money, we transmit the messages to the students with the entire list of all the monies that we have received with them to WhatsApp and their other channels. Then they now come to our bursary, submit their students' account details and some other details, and immediately the money is released. And we have been doing that fantastically. So I commend the federal government for this particular initiative, which I believe is quite useful to our students, considering the economic situation in the country, the difficulties of their parents, and even the conditions on campuses. My appeal is only for state governments to also emulate. Many of the states used to have functional scholarship boards, but many of these scholarship boards have simply become moribund. They are just not functioning. So you see, with the effort of NELFON now, and if we can also get additional support from state governments, particularly for students who may want to go for postgraduate studies, this situation that we are experiencing in terms of difficulties for students, in terms of the kind of frustration and aggression sometimes you see because of the economic situation, will definitely reduce, and the campuses will be much better. And on our own part as universities, we are also benefiting, getting the tuition fee, not tuition fee, some of the service charges the students are supposed to pay are easily deducted from the sums, and they paid to the university, direct into the bursary, and then the balance remitted to them without any stress. And I can't think of any complaint on my campus of students not receiving their monies when and as they should. Once we get any alert from NELFON, we transmit the information and we remit the monies to the students. So far on my own campus, I don't know what's happening on other campuses. Things are okay. And we commend NELFON and we urge them, please, to continue with the good ways of what they have been doing so far. It's been quite helpful to our students. And I can tell you thousands, not hundreds, thousands of my students, I cannot specifically call, but I think it should be in the region of 5,000 to 6,000 or thereabout of my students have got this loan. And what else are we asking for? Better than this.
Indeed, Professor Party, in those days, going to school was not easy, especially from students whose parents are not well-to-do, going on 001, 100, and the way we term it in the university. How easy has this student loan made it for students to attend classes and get good results?
No, as a university student, I was the president of the biggest students' union on campus then in my university, and we were the people dealing with state scholarship boards. And I can recall how active the state scholarship boards in Borno, Gongola, then Bauchi used to be in the northeast sub-region. I don't know whether they're still active or not today, but students always look forward to receiving their scholarship or bursaries. Today, these scholarships, like I've said, are just not functioning. So the only window today existing is this NELFON. And with the devastating poverty we are witnessing in our communities, naturally it will impact on the students too. If you hear the stories of how our students are surviving on some of our campuses, it is so pitiful. But like I've said, this window coming from the federal government through NELFON is quite supportive. Students at least can pay some of the charges on campuses. They can also get something to depend on. So you cannot just tell how the level of importance in the life of our students, except perhaps if we decide to do a sort of a mini research to see the impact of these interventions, even if it's just in the interim on our campuses. Maybe I should be able to do that on my campus. Just commission the Students' Union Department or one of our departments to do a study on the impact of this in the last 1 year or so that this program is being implemented. Definitely, without sounding conclusive, I can predict that the response is going to be very, very positive. I only wish state governments can also follow suit, at least take a portion of their earnings and support the poor students that we have on campuses.
Thank you very much, Professor Party. Just before we continue the conversation, we have some quick messages that I would like to quickly read out so that we can address them. Now, Ayola Olawale, a PhD student from the University of Ibadan, says, is the student loan restricted to undergraduate students? I guess postgraduate students in government-owned universities are excluded from the scheme. Abbas Abubakar Saad from Jalingo says, the student loan scheme, NELFund, is a very good policy. How will graduates who are still unemployed or earning a low income be able to repay the loan? Also, is there any option in place to ease the burden and prevent long-term financial stress, especially for those who are unemployed? And finally, from Emmanuel from Maiduguri, can you help us ask Mr. Akintunde when they would attend to people who changed their bank details since last year, November, and have not received upkeep till now? I guess the three questions are pretty much for you.
Yes, they are. First of all, let me accept and commend the comments from Professor Pate there. I think it's very encouraging for us to have heard those comments, that 5,000 to 6,000 students, and that the university is making sure that they receive value straight away. So to the questions that have been put to me, the first question revolved, I think, around availability of the loan for postgraduate students. It's a fair question. However, our mandate for now is to ensure that those who haven't had the first bite of the cherry, those who haven't had the first rung, been able to cross the first rung of the ladder, should get the opportunity first. So we're very focused because we have limited resources on undergraduates so that they get a chance. We don't want to pay people or give people loans to go and do PhDs and master's programs and then leave behind people who are struggling just to get into a tertiary institution. We think that's the fair way to take it, and that's what we intend to do. The second question,
is talking about those who are still unemployed. You've addressed it in part.
Yes.
You know, how they can pay and not get stressed out.
Again, it's a very fair question. For somebody who's sitting at home, who's graduated, or who has an elder brother or an elder sister who graduated some years ago and haven't been able to get a job, it makes them a bit reticent about trying to take a loan to go and study if the ones that have gone before them hadn't had the opportunity to get a job. What I will say is that the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has a number of different policy thrusts. And you would have heard a couple of days ago something about, pushing for Nigerian-made goods to be the ones that are bought in preference or instead of, imports. These are policies that are going to encourage job creation. And I can tell you that even though we're not there yet, a lot of the policies that you're seeing coming together under the administration will seek to address and bring all of these things together. So I will say it's discouraging not to have work. However, my belief is that things will change, and the government will not be giving student loans, which we need to recover somehow, unless they're jobs that are going to be.
Okay, let's get the
and
student.
The last one, he hasn't, sorry.
Okay, he has the last question.
Addressed the last one, which talked about change of bank details. Since last year.
Yeah, so, this is a brand new scheme, number one. Number two, we are dealing and managing government or taxpayers' funds. It's a totally faceless scheme. In other words, there's no human interaction. You come to me, you give me your bank details online. You come to me later, you say your bank details have changed. Because we never meet you, we are very careful about the change of bank details. Is somebody extorting you? Is somebody forcing you to use a different bank detail? We will eventually solve this, but for now, we don't want lots of money leaving through the window because we never meet the people. So again, I empathize because a lot of people are expectant of this. They want this money. but sadly, a few people put in the wrong details in the first place. And for us, we'll carry out proper due diligence. Please be patient. We have tech systems and due diligence guidelines in place that will help us speed this process up over time. For now, I appreciate the suffering and the anticipation and the frustration, but bear with us. We're dealing with government funds. We will have to account for these funds, and we don't know what you look like.
So students must make sure they have an account number that will run throughout the period of the loan itself.
Not necessarily. So remember, see, because it's a new scheme, for now, we're not going to get into the business of changing account numbers for everybody. Over time, when we've been able to get a proper, stronger handle on, who's doing the change, why they're doing the change, they can change. We work through BVN anyway, so the BVN ties all account numbers together.
Exactly.
It's just that we don't want to be paying money into accounts without being sure.
So let's get the reaction of a student, and our third guest is joining us. She's Rashidat Mohammed Nasser, student of Department of Political Science, Ahmadu Bello University, ABU Zaria, Kaduna State. She is the current Vice President, Faculty of Social Sciences, and also a student advocate interested in female participation in the society. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Rashidat.
Good morning, all. Thank you so much, ma'am.
What is your impression of the student loan and the acceptability in your institutions and students as well?
It's actually a very excellent policy of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. We can clearly see impact on a very high number of students, whereby we do have this high number of students dropping out from the institution, around 2,000 or so every year. But so far so good. We have a very few number of students that dropped out for other reasons, not financial reasons, just their own personal reasons and what have you in the institution. The students are benefiting well here. Yes.
Okay, how easy has it been for students, students like you to access the NELFund website and apply? And how many students do you know that have been paid already?
They have paid a total sum of 10,000, approximately 10,000 students who have applied the loan. All of them got the loan, except for those few that have been withdrawn from the institution that applied for the loan. They were not able to get the loan. And for you to apply this, for one to apply this loan, you don't need any connection. As we said earlier, we don't need any connection. You just need your network connection to apply for this student loan. Your NIN, your JAMREG number, your university registration number 2, and your bank details, BVN. We only face few challenges of those students that use this fintech platforms like OPay, microfinance, and all, that were not able to get their stipend. Now.
Sorry. Are you a beneficiary? Have you applied?
Yes, I applied for the loan.
Have you received?
I got my tuition fees paid and my stipend monthly.
Interesting. Okay, we'll get back to you. We have some text messages that came in. Ifeanyi from Ibadan said, I tried to apply for the loan for my son, who is currently in 200 level at the Ladoke Akintola University of Gbomosho. It didn't get through the site, referred us to contact his university. I'll be unable to pay for his 150,000 tuition fee, which might prevent him from moving forward with his studies. Please kindly and urgently help us with this. And Olaniyan Ademola Sunday says, my son applied for a student loan, but he didn't get the loan. He's a student of Lagos State University studying mechanical engineering. Please, why didn't he get the loan? And Sam Ayegba says, good morning. What happens when a student has already paid school fee before getting the NELFund scholarship award? Should the student request for the earlier payment? And Mr. Benjamin from Anambra says, is there any specific amount to be collected or applied for the student loan throughout the years in the school. And Yusuf Yahya said, I have a complaint of not receiving homekeeping allowances.
And the final one from Ali Elias here says, it's a very key policy as long as this government is concerned. Transparent, easy to apply, payment sometimes a bit delayed, but consistent. Kudos to Nelfund, kudos to President Bola Tinubu. So, you want to respond to some of the issues raised?
Before we go to Mr. Professor Party.
Yeah. Did you want me to respond?
Yeah.
Okay, so you may need to just talk me through them. I think the first one was to do with somebody
Yes.
who applied at Ogbomosho.
Yes, at Ogbomosho.
So, when people go to the site, there are a number of pieces of information that they need to provide. They need to provide their name.
Okay.
They need to provide their date of birth. They need to confirm that they're Nigerian, and they do that by entering their NIN. They need to confirm that they've accessed the tertiary institution using JAMB. So they need their JAMB reg number. They need to be able to provide us with the institution that they're attending on a drop-down list. And of course, they also need to be able to provide us with either an admission number or a matriculation number. Let me just tell you and explain something to you about those things. When they provide us with the NIN, we have a digital handshake with NIMSI that checks that that NIN is a correct and accurate NIN, and that it ties into the name that they have provided us with and the date of birth. When they provide us with the JAMB reg number, it checks with JAMB that that JAMB number is accurate, it's real, and it's not made up. If there's any inaccuracy in that number, it will fail. So these numbers are generally alphanumeric. They're numbers and digits. If they put an O instead of a 0, it will fail. Okay? It will fail because it's sensitive to that sort of thing. So what happens when all that information is put in? I remember I said it has a digital handshake with NIMSI, it has a digital handshake with JAMB. We also have an internal digital handshake within our system because all the institutions are obliged by us to provide us with all the same information that we're asking the students for. So the institutions, the colleges of education, the polytechnics, the universities provide us with a complete list of their students with their name, their full name, their date of birth, their JAMB reg number, their matriculation number, the department they're in, the course they're studying, and importantly, the cost of the course. So every course comes at a different cost.
Okay. What about if Sam Iwada said that he has already paid the school fees? Should he,
Okay.
should the student request for the earlier payment?
So very quickly, let me just come in. So we have an internal digital handshake that checks that information. I'm trying to address the Ogbomosho issue.
Yes.
If any of that information is incorrect, or if the school has not provided us with either accurate information or any information at all, it'll ask you, the system will say, missing information, return to your institution. So it is important that the institutions provide us with accurate information.
Okay.
With regards to people who have paid their fees already, if you've applied and due to our due diligence process, the fees that we pay on your behalf come after you've had to pay because of an impending deadline, the school is obliged to return and refund your money to you.
Okay.
That is the obligation that the school has. Otherwise, they're receiving money twice for the same student. Some schools have been very good at doing that. Others have been a bit slower. The other issue that we've been having recently, unfortunately, there's a handful of institutions that have received the funds. And unlike Professor Pate's institution, which is very quick at telling people that the funds have come through, a handful of institutions have received the funds. They haven't told the students they've received it. The students have had to go and look for money to pay. And of course, that compromises the students, and some of them actually drop out. It's a disastrous way to behave for the institutions that are doing it, and there will be severe penalties for these institutions on the way. We're doing a lot of investigation into this at the moment. But to the question, the school is obliged to refund to the student the funds that they have paid in excess of what we've paid.
Okay.
All right, let's get back to Professor Party quickly. Professor Party, would you say that the scheme as it is is perfect, or you think that there are gaps to plug to make it even better?
Thank you very much. I have heard some of the questions raised, and of course, being a new scheme, and also at the initial point, there may be some hitches here and there. This should be expected, either on the part of the institutions or on the part of the people who are engaged in the activity, and also looking at the number of students involved. Now, in my own institutions, we have had students that paid their tuition fees before getting the loans. Their names, I think, were approved and the money sent not long ago. And we're in the second semester now. So what we did for those that have already paid their registration fees, simply we remitted the monies to them through their accounts with the refund of all that they are paid to the university. And it's been a very seamless issue. In fact, I met with the Students' Union when they were registered. They came to me to say, okay, some people applied and their names are yet to appear, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, no, there is no problem with this. We have a whole desk, a whole unit that we have created for this activity. Make sure once you have registered, keep your documents, and the day your name nail form with your money will notify you that your name has appeared on the list to the Students' Union and to their own channels. And then we remit the money that you have paid for registration directly into your account. So far, we have not had any issue in that regard. So, and for those that were lucky that their monies came before the payment of registration fees, they didn't have any issue. They just got their monies. Initially, students were skeptical. Some students were skeptical on applying for this NEL fund. I remember the advocacy I did among my students, telling them, convincing them. Some people were a bit skeptical that, oh, no, we are not sure. So just apply. And when the first tranche, they realized that this is serious. Then a number of them now started applying left, right, and center. And the monies have been coming, but not at once. So after a while, you see a tranche coming in. In fact, some people are even spreading rumors, oh, we have got money, we are keeping the money in our accounts in the university. I called the students, I said, look, why are we going to keep your monies? Once you have the money, every student will come, submit his details to whatever, so that we can be sure it is him. And then we remit the money to the account. And we have been doing just that. As I'm talking to you now, most of my students in mass communication who didn't apply initially applied. They have got the monies now. And they are receiving, in fact, I wish I could show you the messages that some who have sent to me, expressing their gratitude and saying, oh, they are happy, they have got their monies, blah, blah. So I don't think there are serious complications for now, except where we decide to create unnecessary bureaucracies into the system at the level of disbursement. But there should be no reason for that. Once the money comes into your bursary, you have a whole unit, and then the students are notified. Except, like the MD said, we have some few cases of students having problems with their account numbers. And some students come to you to complain that, oh, they have applied for an NEL fund, they have not, they say, just relax. So these are normal issues that we handle at our own operational levels. But on a very general level, I don't think there are fundamental issues that we can say are causing wahala. The students themselves are increasingly noticing and knowing that, look, this thing is serious. Once you have applied, you have a very high chance of getting the money. So it's just a matter of time. The entire campuses will get on board, and I hope the resources will continue to flow through TED Fund to the students. That's the only thing. But for now, I think at our own level in Kashere, we do not have any major issue. And I hope, like I've said, I'll be able to do a small study, just maybe a small study among to ask what are, the impact and probably their expectations and if there are problems. And that could give us an insight on whether we are also managing the process very well or not.
All right. Professor Pate, thank you very much. As we gradually wind down this conversation, I think two more messages have come in. Good morning, he says. The NELFund policy is a welcome policy. However, I wish to ask, are government policies on bursaries and scholarships no more tenable in the country? My sons are skeptical about anything loan. That's from Ndika Obu. And then Olani Ademola says, why is it that Northerners are enjoying more of the student loan? Are other parts of the country not applying as much? Well, that's a question to be answered. And finally, Ms. Bahu from Abuja, is it not possible for NELFund to send alarm of payment to students directly to stop institutions from withholding the information? Alarm? Perhaps alerts?
Alert,
Okay.
alert. I think alert. So let me address that one first.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, the way the system works at the moment is that when a student applies for the loan, they get the initial response they get if their loan application is successful is they get a statement saying pending.
Okay.
After some time, when we've reviewed all the documentation that they've provided, in terms of what they've uploaded, and we've reviewed the application itself, it moves to verified. So we verify the application effectively. After that, we send the list to the institution. They say, yes, these are our students. It goes to approved. And then it goes to disbursement on their dashboard. So they know it's been disbursed. Very soon, we're going to start putting in systems that alert the students. Because of some of these issues, these contentious issues on campuses, we're going to alert the students more actively as to when their fees have been paid, so that they don't have to struggle with that. Now, to the other question around bursary scholarships. Look, we run a federation, 36 states, federal government. The federal government has loans, as in NELFund. There are scholarships which are still being given. There are bursaries which are still being given. Each of the 36 state governments have their own policies around how they support education.
I enjoyed bursary anyway.
Yeah, this scheme
too.
does not supersede, it doesn't obliterate any of the other schemes that are going on in the country. Of course, we want to give the loans to people who are not enjoying a bursary somewhere, who are not enjoying a scholarship somewhere. So we're going to take a holistic view because we want this thing to spread across the nation. There was a question about, people enjoying this from one part of the country or another. This is a loan. You can't force people to take loans. If everybody in a particular state wants to take a loan and in all the other states they don't want to take it, as long as we present the opportunity to them, that's our obligation, to present the opportunity that you can get this loan. You can't force people to take loans, okay? You can encourage, and I, for one, sit here today encouraging people. These are not loans for consumer goods. These are not loans for things that you're going to throw away in 5 years' time because it's not working anymore. Once you have your education, you can never get rid of it. It's with you all the way. So if you're going to take a loan for anything, it's for education. It doesn't break down. It doesn't spoil. It doesn't get thrown in the bin. It is with you for life. These are the loans to take. And actually, it's interest-free. So the whole idea of north, south, east, west, it doesn't gel because it's a voluntary scheme. And you have to volunteer to take it.
The whole NELFund scheme will be sustainable and it will continue for new students joining higher institutions. But before that, I also want to talk, firstly, I want to applaud my own Vice Chancellor in person of Professor Kabir Bala and the high level of representation. He was able to refund the loans of the school fees of students who already paid their fees before the loans got disbursed, most especially for those of the second tranche, because we got it very late. And that issue of the northerners getting more than other parts of the country, the student loan scheme. I remember clearly that the managing director of the student loan, Mr. Kintunde Sawyer, actually visited almost all institutions in Nigeria, except ABU, Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. He haven't visited us yet, but we were able to get this loan, both first and second tranche, due to the high level of representation from both our SRC, our student union, with the president in person of Nazir Ibrahim Kalla, and also the institutions, the bodies that were in charge of the loan disbursement. So there's no sentiment when it comes to this whole student loan scheme thing. And I just hope it continues and the president will help us sustain it, please, because we love it. We really do, honestly. The challenge is also of this fintech platform, like those students that use OPay, PalmPay, MoneyPoint, they already have given their BVN. So what I feel is NELFON should allow those students get their stipend, because it may look normal, but it's not normal for me to see other students getting 20,000 when they've applied for the same loan I've applied, and I that is using OPay, MoneyPoint, and PalmPay is not also getting, because I use all these fintech platform. We've already given a BVN, bank verification number. So we just want, if we just wish.
Rashida, we've run out of time. We have to join Professor Partey for his last word. Professor Partey, going forward, how do you see the student loan being disbursed to students? And somebody complained that some parts of the countries are not getting, but is that why people should abstain from applying for it?
A loan. It's a matter of choice for you to pick. But let me tell you one thing. On my campus, students are from all over the states in Nigeria. And no state or no student was denied the loan, to the best of my knowledge, based on his state of origin. Anybody that applied, I think, got the loan. And the list is very, very transparently displayed on campus. There's nothing hidden there. You can go and check and look at the names. You'll find the name of students from all over the country. But the next issue is, I think there's a challenge for our state governments to reciprocate or to replicate what is happening at the federal level. I remember sometimes ago, a particular governor asked me, why can't we reduce our registration fee or make the students to pay in tranches? I said, sir, the best way to help the student is give them bursaries. There's a particular state that send the registration fee of their students directly to the university. They asked me in the university, please, can you provide the list of our students in your university? In fact, particularly Kano State, can you provide the list of our students? We send the list to them, and they paid the monies directly to the university, and their students never paid any kobo. And I'm sure some of these students, they also got the NELFON. So if other states can also have the courage and the conviction to continue to help their students in the universities, plus the NELFON, things will be much better for our educational system. Our students will be in more conducive environments. Our campuses will be more peaceful, and everything will be better for everybody. So please, the state governments should replicate what is happening at the federal level. There should be no excuse for any state government in this country not to support the students like it used to be the case in the past.
All right, Professor Partey, we thank you very much. And finally, let me get back to Akintunde Sawyer here in the studio. If I don't ask you this, I wouldn't be doing my job. Recently, there's been allegation of fraud in the NELFON, in the student loan scheme. What do you say to this? Because it has the potential of undermining public trust in the scheme, and that will affect, what the federal government intended for students.
Thank you very much. I think it is most unfortunate that these allegations have emerged, especially in a country like this at this time. This country is facing huge amounts of difficulty because of many, many schemes that have been undermined through fraud in the past. This scheme is targeted at people who have generally been the victims of underinvestment in this country. So for fraud to be associated with this type of scheme is very unfortunate. And I think it's important that we don't bury our heads under the sand. I think whenever we see anything that suggests that there's fraud, it should be thoroughly investigated. We are not leaving any stone unturned, whether the fraud is supposedly outside of the organization or inside the organization. We are constantly monitoring what's going on. We work with the security agencies to ensure that any information that we have, we provide to them. The other thing I'll tell you is that we're supervised by the Ministry of Education. The Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, is very, very keen and very laser focused actually on these issues. And I think anyone who's found wanting will suffer some administrative penalties from the Ministry of Education, who supervise most of the institutions. We don't have a supervisory role, but we're working very closely with the Honourable Minister and the Ministry to ensure that things are closed off. Finally, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has deployed this incredible scheme to help a huge number of people. It's a vision he's had. It's very courageous. Most administrations want a quick win. They want to do something that everybody's going to start shouting and saying, yeah. This is a long, drawn-out process. But it's a long, drawn-out process that's going to help individuals. It's going to help the education system. It's going to help the country. So I think that the political will to ensure that this is not a scheme that ends in disaster or becomes moribund, he's laser focused on this as well. I'm talking about the president. So actually, all eyes are on this scheme. Not talk about the students. Students themselves, they're really focused on this. So anyone who wants to do fraud here should be careful.
Indeed, it is a renewed hope for Nigerian students, actually. Thank you so much, Akintude Soya, Managing Director, Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund. Thank you so much for your contributions and your... so much for your contribution to the conversation. We appreciate it. We take a break. When we return, our second conversation will begin.